Have you ever wondered why two equally talented people can face like the exact same setback, and I mean the exact same one, like getting passed over for a promotion or, blowing a really important presentation, and they just have completely different reactions?
Oh, yeah. Like night and day.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like one of them just thrives. They use it as fuel. They figure out what went wrong and they come back significantly stronger.
Right.
But then the other person, they just completely fall apart. They spiral into this like massive self-doubt and essentially just give up. And we see it everywhere, right?
Oh, everywhere. In our colleagues, in our kids.
Yeah.
We definitely see it in ourselves.
We absolutely see it in ourselves. So the question is, what is the fundamental difference between those two people? And that is exactly what we were taking a deep dive into today.
Such a crucial question.
It really is. Our mission for you, as always, is to serve as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. So we take the really heavy source material, and today we have an amazing one, a comprehensive summary of Dr. Carol S. Dweck's monumental work, Mindset, changing the way you think to fulfill your potential, and we just extract the core insights.
Yeah, based on, what, decades of research at Stanford University?
Decades, yeah. And honestly, this is going to completely reframe how you view talent and effort, leadership, and even love. It gets into relationships, too.
Which is wild, right? Because it really is the ultimate question of human potential.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here is that society usually hands us this very standard set of excuses for why one person succeeds and another just shatters.
Like what? Like genetics and stuff.
Exactly. We default to assuming, oh, well, that person must just be inherently smarter, or, they had better genetics or maybe more supportive upbringing, that kind of thing.
Right. They're just a natural.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Dweck's research, it just strips all of that away. The deciding factor actually doesn't lie in your raw intelligence or your environment. It lies in a really simple, deeply held belief about yourself.
A belief.
Yeah. It's essentially the psychological operating system that you're running in the background every minute of every day.
Okay, so let's unpack this operating system. Because to understand literally everything else we're going to talk about in this deep dive, we have to define the two camps that Dweck categorizes people into.
Right, the two mindsets.
Yeah, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And let's start with the fixed mindset because reading through the source material, I gotta say, it sounds like an incredibly stressful way to live.
Oh, it is exhausting. Just completely exhausting.
I can imagine.
The fixed mindset is, at its core, it's the belief that your basic qualities, so your intelligence, your personality, your raw talent, they are just carved in stone.
Carved in stone, like unchangeable.
Unchangeable. You are dealt a very specific hand of cards at birth, and that is your permanent inventory. You have a certain quota of intelligence, a set amount of athletic ability, a fixed threshold for how creative you can be, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to expand it.
Wow. And if you really believe that, if you internalize that, the psychological consequences just seem immediate and severe.
Oh, they are.
Because if your traits are fixed, it creates this crushing, urgent need to just prove yourself over and over and over again, doesn't it?
Yes. Every single situation you walk into isn't just an experience. It's a high-stakes test of your inherent worth.
Oh, man. That's heavy.
Your internal monologue is just constantly asking, will I look smart or dumb here? Am I going to be revealed as a winner or a loser?
Right. Am I about to be exposed?
Exactly. And the mechanism driving that anxiety is something called identity fusion.
Identity fusion. Okay, what is that?
So in a fixed mindset, there's zero separation between your action and your identity. Failing at a task literally means you are a failure. Yeah. Like if you bomb a pitch meeting, the interpretation isn't, oh, my presentation structure was confusing, I need to work on my public speaking. The interpretation is, I am incompetent. I am just not a smart person.
It's a permanent indictment of your character.
Precisely.
So I want to give you, the listener, a way to kind of visualize the mechanics of this, because it clicked for me when I thought about it this way. Imagine you're playing this massive, beautiful, open-world video game.
Okay, I love a video game analogy.
Right. But you are forced to play it on permadeath mode.
Oh, no. That is brutal.
It's notoriously brutal. That's the setting where if you make a single mistake, like if you miss one jump or take one hit from an enemy, your entire save file is just deleted.
Everything is gone.
Everything you've built, gone forever. Now, if you're playing a game on permadeath, how do you play?
You play terrified.
Exactly. You play terrified, you hide, you avoid all the boss fights, you just stay in the starting village where it's safe because any risk is an existential threat to your entire game.
That is exactly it.
And that is what living with a fixed mindset feels like. Every challenge is a potential game over for your ego.
That perfectly captures the behavioral paralysis of it.
Yeah.
And now, contrast that with the growth mindset.
Right, the other camp.
The growth mindset is like playing that exact same complex video game, but with infinite respawns.
Oh, okay. I like the sound of that better.
Much better, right?
Yeah.
When your character dies, your save file isn't deleted. You just respawn at the checkpoint. And crucially, you now possess new data.
Right, you learn.
Yes. You know the boss has a sweeping attack from the left. You know the platform drops away after 2 seconds. You learn the patterns. So the source material defines the growth mindset as the fundamental belief that your basic qualities can be cultivated through effort, strategy, and guidance.
Okay, but the source makes a really important clarification here, which I think we have to highlight before we go any further, just to be totally fair to the research.
Definitely.
The growth mindset isn't like some blind, naive optimism. Dweck is not claiming that if I just try hard enough, I'll suddenly be able to write symphonies like Mozart or solve theoretical physics problems like Albert Einstein.
Right. Doesn't mean we all start with the exact same innate capacities.
Right, because that's just physically not true.
Exactly. And this raises an important question about realistic potential. The belief isn't that everyone can reach the exact same pinnacle of historical genius. That's absurd.
Yeah.
The belief is that a person's true potential is unknown and unknowable. It is literally impossible to foresee what can be accomplished with years of passion, toil, and dedicated training.
Unknown and unknowable. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. The growth mindset is simply the acknowledgement that everyone can grow through application and experience. It's not about guaranteeing you'll cross the same finish line as, an Olympic athlete.
Yeah.
It's about refusing to artificially cap your own starting line.
Refusing to cap your starting line. Wow. Because if we look at how this plays out in the real world, the fixed mindset literally becomes a self-imposed prison.
It really does.
The source outlines that people with a fixed mindset, they actively avoid challenges to protect their image. They give up at the very first sign of friction. And worse, and this part really struck me, they feel deeply threatened by the success of others.
Oh, that is a huge indicator. And if you look at the mechanics of why they feel threatened, it makes perfect tragic sense.
How so?
Well, in a world where talent is a fixed pie, someone else's massive slice feels like it leaves less for you.
Oh, I see.
Right. If a colleague gets a major promotion, it somehow implies that you are deficient because there's only so much smart to go around.
It's a zero-sum game to them.
Exactly. And feedback operates the exact same way. In a growth mindset, negative feedback is just the video game telling you your sword swing was too slow.
Right.
Data. Just data. But in a fixed mindset, negative feedback is perceived as an assassination attempt on your character.
An assassination attempt.
Literally. So you block it out,
Yeah.
you get incredibly defensive, and you completely forfeit the opportunity to adapt to get better.
So think about the last time you, the listener, failed at something. Just think back. Maybe it was a major project that derailed at work, or maybe it was just a new hobby you tried to pick up. Like, say you tried to learn the guitar and your fingers just wouldn't make the chords.
Oh, the dreaded F chord.
Exactly, the F chord. It's impossible at first. In that moment of intense frustration, what did your internal voice say? Did you feel exposed as a fraud? Did you think, well, I guess I'm just not musically inclined. I should probably just sell the guitar on Craigslist.
We've all been there.
Right. Or did you see the failure as raw data for your next attempt? Did you think, okay, my wrist angle is wrong. I need to go watch a YouTube tutorial on hand positioning? Your reaction in that exact millisecond of failure is the absolute purest indicator of which mindset you were running.
It's the ultimate diagnostic test. But, the most vital, hopeful takeaway from the entire foundation of Dweck's work is that your mindset is not a personality trait.
It's not carved in stone either.
Exactly. You are not genetically doomed to be a fixed mindset person. It is simply a learned belief. And beliefs can be unlearned.
Which naturally leads us to ask, where on earth do these mindsets come from in the first place? Like, how do we end up programmed one way or the other? Because we aren't born terrified of failure.
Not at all.
Have you ever seen a baby learning to walk? They fall down hundreds of times, thousands of times, and they never once sit there and think, well, I guess I'm just not a walking person. I'll just crawl forever to protect my ego.
Could you imagine?
It would be ridiculous. So when does the shift happen? When do we start protecting our egos like that?
Well, the source material highlights a really profound realization Dweck had after observing a high school in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, this was fascinating.
Yeah. So in this particular school, when students didn't pass a course, they didn't receive a traditional failing grade, they didn't get an F. Instead, the school gave them the grade, not yet.
Not yet. I mean, it's such a tiny semantic shift, just changing a letter to two words, but the psychological implications of that are staggering.
Massive.
Imagine being a teenager, right? You're already incredibly insecure. You're trying to figure out your place in the social hierarchy, the academic hierarchy. You hand in a math test, and it comes back with a big bleeding red F for fail.
It's devastating.
It is a hard stop. It's a label. It basically tells you that you are fundamentally deficient.
Right. And what's fascinating here is how that single phrase, not yet, alters the entire temporal landscape of learning.
The temporal landscape, what do you mean by that?
Well, an F places the student at a dead end, geographically, temporally. It is a final verdict. The journey is over and you lost. But not yet places the student on a trajectory. It implies motion. It tells the student, you are on a path, you are moving forward, and you simply haven't reached this specific coordinate yet.
Oh, I love that.
It changes the fundamental framework of the school system from an assessment of static identity to an assessment of continuous progress.
And that concept, it really scales down to how mindsets are formed in early childhood, doesn't it? Largely through the adults around us. Specifically, the source points out that it comes down to how we are praised.
Oh, the studies on praise. Dweck's landmark studies on praise are truly unsettling when you realize how pervasive the wrong kind's praise is.
Yeah, this part actually made me rethink every conversation I've ever had with a kid.
Same. So the researchers took groups of children, elementary school age, and gave them a series of puzzles to solve.
Okay.
After the first round, which were, fairly easy puzzles, they praised the children. But they subtly divided the praise into two distinct categories. They praised one group for their inherent intelligence. They told them, wow, you got a really good score on this. You must be really smart at this.
Which is, let's be honest, the exact script every well-meaning adult uses. You're so smart, you're such a little genius.
It's the default setting of modern parenting. We all say it. But the second group of kids was praised strictly for their effort.
Okay, so what did they say to them?
They were told, wow, you got a really good score. You must have worked really hard.
Just that.
Just that. It seems like a completely benign, tiny difference in vocabulary. But the behavioral consequences were immediate and massive.
What happened?
Well, when the researchers subsequently offered the children a choice for their next puzzle, they told them, you can either choose a harder puzzle that you would learn from, or you can choose an easy puzzle that you are guaranteed to do well on. The majority of the kids who were praised for intelligence chose the easy puzzle.
Wait, really? The smart kids chose the easy one.
Yes. Because the researchers had just handed them a fragile label, they gave them the identity of smart, and now the child's entire motivation pivoted from learning to protecting that new identity.
Oh, wow. Because if they took the hard puzzle and failed...
Exactly. If they failed, they wouldn't be the smart kid anymore. So they actively chose stagnation to guarantee their status.
That is wild. The praise itself forced them into a fixed mindset.
Precisely. Meanwhile, the children who were praised for their effort, overwhelmingly, 90% of them chose the harder puzzle.
90%.
Yeah, they didn't care about looking smart because their value hadn't been tied to a static trait. Their value had been tied to the exertion of effort. They wanted the harder puzzle because they'd been taught that the struggle itself was the goal.
We really need to look at the broader cultural damage of this, because think about the labels we are absolutely obsessed with as a society. Gifted, talented, a natural.
Progress.
We literally have gifted and talented tracks in elementary schools. We love identifying the child prodigy, but the source argues that these labels are actually psychological traps.
They really are. They create incredibly brittle high achievers. If you tell a 10-year-old they are a natural, they internalize that their success is just some magic trick they were born with. It just flows out of them.
Right, no effort required.
Yeah. But eventually, everyone hits a wall. Everyone encounters, advanced calculus or a complex coding language or a deeply nuanced project at work that doesn't just flow out of them naturally.
Right, the real world catches up.
Exactly. And when that gifted child finally struggles for the very first time, their entire self-concept shatters. The research shows these students often plateau early, they develop severe anxiety around new challenges, and shockingly, they are highly prone to lying about their test scores to maintain the illusion of effortless perfection.
Lying, just to look smart.
Yes, because the pressure to be the genius is too much to bear.
I wonder how many people listening right now are having a really visceral reaction to this, because how many of you were told you were so smart in middle school, you coasted right, you got
Yeah.
A's without opening a textbook, and everyone applauded your natural brilliance.
The classic gifted kid trope.
Right. But then you hit college or you entered the workforce in your mid-20s, and suddenly you encountered problems that required extreme, sustained, grueling effort. Because you'd never been taught how to struggle, because your fixed mindset explicitly told you if I have to try hard, it proves I'm not a genius anymore, you just gave up.
You tap out.
You plateaued. You settled into a comfortable, unchallenging career because you were literally terrified of proving to the world that you weren't special after all. The burnout of the gifted kid is a direct result of this phenomenon.
It's a profound tragedy, honestly. We think we are giving children our highest compliment by calling them a natural genius. We think we are, building their self-esteem.
Yeah.
But we are actually handing them a heavy, suffocating burden. We are telling them, your worth is tied to this innate trait. Don't ever let us see you sweat, or we might revoke the label.
Don't let us see you sweat. Wow. So the key takeaway here is loud and clear. Praise the process, not the person. Effort-based praise builds resilient humans. Saying, you tried so hard, builds a growth mindset. Saying, you're so clever, builds fragility.
Exactly. And if we expand this beyond childhood, it requires a massive cultural shift in how we speak to each other as adults, too. We have to stop romanticizing the illusion of effortless perfection.
And that perfectly bridges into what this source calls the genius myth and the whole battle between talent versus effort. Because society doesn't just do this to kids. We heavily romanticize natural talent in adults.
Oh, we worship it. We have a deep-seated cultural obsession with the idea of innate ability over dedicated practice. When we look at a phenomenal concert pianist or a groundbreaking physicist, our default comfortable assumption is, wow, they were touched by the gods. They are just magical.
Right, I could never do that because I wasn't born with that brain.
It's exactly. But Dweck's research, corroborated by endless studies across music, sports, and mathematics, consistently proves this is a complete illusion. Dedicated practice and immense sustained effort matter exponentially more than whatever initial genetic baseline someone possesses.
The source outlines this concept called the low-effort trap. And this is a spectacularly toxic belief held by people with a fixed mindset. They actually believe that if you need to exert effort, it is definitive proof that you lack talent.
Yes, the effort itself is seen as a weakness.
Right. In their minds, true geniuses don't sweat. True geniuses just wake up, sip a coffee, and, paint the Sistine Chapel before lunch.
Which is completely backward. Effort isn't the thing that proves you lack talent. Effort is the mechanism that activates talent. The greatest minds in history were, without exception, obsessive, unrelenting workers. The source uses Charles Darwin and Albert Einstein as prime historical examples of this.
Let's look at them, because the mythology around both of those men is that they were born with superhuman brains, like they were just operating on a different frequency from birth.
Right, the whole apple falling on the head light bulb moment.
Wait, wasn't that Isaac Newton with the apple?
Right, Newton, sorry. But the exact same myth applies to Einstein. We think he just rode a bicycle one day and suddenly understood relativity in a flash of pure genius.
Yes, but the source points out that neither Darwin nor Einstein showed any obvious early signs of genius, none. They were considered remarkably average, sometimes even slow, by their early teachers.
Exactly. Their true distinction wasn't a magically wired brain at birth. It was an extraordinary, unquenchable passion for their subjects, coupled with relentless, sustained effort over decades.
Decades.
Yes. Einstein didn't just have a sudden flash of insight. He spent years pursuing mathematical dead ends. He collaborated with peers, he analyzed his failures, and he just ground through the work. His talent was cultivated, not just bestowed upon him.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I have to push back here on behalf of pragmatism.
Sure.
I can hear the listener thinking it, and honestly, I'm thinking it too. Isn't physical genetic talent real?
Oof.
Because, if I, with my current height, my wingspan, and my fast twitch muscle fiber ratio, decide to practice basketball all day, every single day for the next 10 years, I'm still not making the NBA.
Fair point.
There has to be a baseline of physical or cognitive reality, right? We can't just effort our way into literally anything.
This is the most common, and honestly the most important, pushback to Dweck's work. And the source material is absolutely not claiming that genetic talent doesn't exist, or that everyone's biological baseline is identical.
Okay, good.
Yes, physical parameters dictate certain realities. Yes, some people might grasp a complex spatial geometry concept in 10 minutes while it takes someone else 10 hours. The growth mindset does not argue that effort erases all physical limitations.
So what does it argue?
It argues that effort is the multiplier of whatever baseline you possess, and it is the only way to find out what your absolute maximum potential actually is.
Ah, okay. So it's about the multiplier, not the starting number.
It's exactly. Let's use your basketball example.
Mhm.
Even a person born with the ideal 6'8" height and perfect physical coordination for basketball will never make the NBA if they rely solely on that baseline and don't exert relentless effort.
Right. They'll just be a tall guy who's okay at basketball.
Exactly. And the person who is 5'9" might never make the NBA, but with a growth mindset and extreme effort, they will become a vastly better player than they ever thought possible. Maybe they become an elite collegiate point guard or a world-class coach.
Yeah.
The tragedy of the fixed mindset is that it stops you before you even find out where your true ceiling is. It uses the existence of talent as an excuse to tap out early.
Why do we do that? Like, psychologically, why does society love the natural genius myth so much?
Because it's comforting.
It is. Because it gives the rest of us a psychological out. It is the ultimate excuse. Think about it. If we tell ourselves that Albert Einstein was simply a biological mutant with a superhuman brain, then we don't have to feel guilty about the fact that we spent our entire weekend binge-watching reality TV instead of, I don't know, reading or practicing a skill or building something.
It absolutely lets us off the hook.
Yeah.
If genius is born, we bear no responsibility to cultivate our own potential. But if genius is built through decades of grueling, unglamorous effort, well, that requires us to look in the mirror and ask some very uncomfortable questions about our own daily choices.
It really does. So if we accept that effort is the multiplier of talent, we have to look at the one arena where raw physical talent is universally worshipped, measured, and tested.
Professional sports.
Exactly. The source material spends significant time on the mindset of champions.
And sports is the ultimate laboratory for mindset because the feedback loop is immediate and it is ruthless. You either win or you lose. Your stats are entirely public. And Dweck's analysis reveals that mindset, not just raw physical measurement, is the ultimate separator between the good and the legendary.
Let's talk about how fixed mindset athletes operate in this environment, even the incredibly talented ones. Their primary objective constantly is protecting their image.
Right.
When they lose a game, what happens? They become factories of excuses. It was the referee's fault. The turf was wet. My shoulder was acting up. They blame their teammates to deflect scrutiny.
Anything but their own ability.
Anything. And strategically, they actively avoid situations that might expose a weakness in their game. Like, if a basketball player is an elite shooter but a terrible defender and they have a fixed mindset, they will not put in the grueling, humiliating hours to get better at defense. They will just complain that the coach's system is flawed.
And the history of sports is littered with these can't-miss prospects, supremely talented athletes who never fulfilled their potential precisely because of this ego-driven fragility.
We see it in the draft every year.
Every year. They coasted on their natural ability until they reached the professional level, where literally everyone is talented. At that level, talent alone isn't enough, and because they had never learned the mechanics of struggle, they completely folded. Contrast that with the growth mindset athletes.
The source brings up Michael Jordan, and we don't need to rehash his entire resume, but the source highlights the specific lore of his origin, being cut from his high school varsity basketball team.
It's the ultimate story. If you possess a fixed mindset, getting cut from the high school team is the ultimate verdict from the universe. It is objective proof that you are not a basketball player. You hang up your shoes and find a new identity.
Right. I'm not a basketball player. I'll go play baseball.
But Jordan used that rejection as psychological rocket fuel. He didn't just practice more. He fundamentally outworked human limits. He was legendary for his obsessive, almost psychotic work ethic. He built his greatness out of the raw material of his failures.
Muhammad Ali is another prime example in the text. The source notes that Ali actually lacked many of the classic physical measurements and skills typical for a heavyweight boxer of his era.
Which is crazy to think about.
It is. He didn't have the standard overwhelming punching power. He didn't have the classic defensive stance. But he built his dominance through intense study of his opponents, unconventional movement, and sheer indomitable will.
But the most revealing example the source provides, I think, is Mia Hamm, one of the greatest female soccer players in history.
Yes, this part was amazing.
Dweck highlights a specific defining characteristic of Hamm's career. She constantly, deliberately sought out players who were significantly better than her to train against.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you think about the mechanics of ego, that is a completely counterintuitive strategy.
Totally backwards for most people.
If you have a fixed mindset and you are considered the star player, the absolute last thing you want to do is share a practice field with someone who makes you look slow or unskilled. You want to surround yourself with inferior players so you can constantly dominate, shine, and protect your status as the alpha.
Right. Feed the ego.
But Ham actively invited her own destruction on the practice field.
She did, because to her, being the best wasn't a static identity that needed protecting. It was a moving horizon she was chasing.
A moving horizon.
Yeah. Playing against superior athletes wasn't a threat to her ego. It was a free diagnostic test. It was an opportunity to observe their techniques, to test her own limits, and to expose her weaknesses so she could surgically fix them. The growth mindset champion uses superior competition as a mirror to reflect what they need to work on, not as a threat to their self-worth.
Apply this to your own life right now. Just think about it. How do you treat the better players in your professional or personal circles?
Oh, this is a tough question to answer, honestly.
It really is. When a new colleague joins your team and they are clearly brilliant, highly efficient, and incredibly charismatic, how does your nervous system react?
Do you feel threatened?
Right. Do you feel threatened? Do you secretly hope they make a public mistake so you look better by comparison? Because if so, that is the fixed mindset operating in the shadows.
Yep.
Or do you look at them and think, wow, I can learn a lot from how they structure a pitch. I'm going to take them to coffee and ask for advice.
That transition from the individual athlete to the workplace is crucial. Because if a fixed mindset can derail an individual champion, what happens when it becomes the operating system for an entire corporation?
Oh, man. Let's move into the boardroom. The source presents a stark contrast between fixed mindset leaders and growth mindset leaders, and honestly, it reads like a diagnostic manual for toxic work environment.
It really does. The primary dysfunction stems from the leader's core motivation. A fixed mindset leader has a pathological need to appear infallible.
They can never be wrong.
Never. Because their entire identity rests on being the smartest person in the room. Any admission of error is processed as a fatal vulnerability. Therefore, they never admit mistakes. They deflect, they spin the narrative, or they find a scapegoat.
Whereas a growth mindset leader admits mistakes openly. They stand up in front of the entire company and say, I made the wrong call on our Q3 strategy. Here's the data I missed. Here's what I learned. And here's how we pivot. It seems so simple, but it completely rewires the psychological safety of the entire organization.
Exactly, because it gives everyone else permission to learn, and the domino effect continues. Fixed mindset leaders are actually terrified of their own talented employees.
Just like the athlete who avoids better players.
Yes. A fixed mindset CEO or manager doesn't want brilliant subordinates who might outshine them or challenge their archaic ideas, so they surround themselves with sycophants and yes men.
Right.
But a growth mindset leader actively develops their people because they view the team's brilliance as an asset to leverage, not a threat to neutralize.
The source points out that fixed leaders hoard credit for successes but distribute blame for failures. They actively avoid honest feedback. And to illustrate how destructive this is on a macro scale, Dweck uses the cautionary tale of Enron.
Oh, Enron, the perfect example.
We really need to look at the specific culture they built. Because Enron's entire corporate identity was built on what management consultants at the time literally praised as the talent mindset.
Right. They believed that innate, raw intelligence was the sole predictor of value. They didn't care about industry experience, they didn't care about moral character, and they certainly didn't care about a willingness to learn or grow.
No, they just wanted the pedigree.
Exactly. They recruited the top graduates from Ivy League schools, threw massive compensation packages at them, and basically told them, you are the anointed geniuses. You are inherently better than everyone else. Go make us billions.
And what happens when you build an entire ecosystem that worships inherent brilliance and severely punishes any sign of struggle?
You create terror.
You create an environment of sheer, unadulterated terror. At Enron, if you asked a clarifying question in a meeting, it signaled you weren't smart enough to figure it out yourself.
Right, you're exposing yourself.
If a project you were managing hit a snag, you couldn't ask for help because struggling was synonymous with incompetence. You had to maintain the facade of the infallible genius at all costs.
So when their aggressive business models started failing and the math stopped working out, nobody could admit it.
They physically couldn't.
The fixed mindset culture had made the truth entirely unacceptable to the system. So they lied. They committed systemic, catastrophic accounting fraud to hide their failures and protect their status as the smartest guys in the room.
Okay, let's unpack this with a mechanical analogy because it helps me visualize it. A company run by a fixed mindset leader isn't just a bad place to work. It functions exactly like a biological body suffering from an autoimmune disease.
Okay, I'm following.
In a healthy body, which would be a growth mindset company, the immune system attacks external threats, competitors, market shifts, whatever. But in an autoimmune disease, the body gets confused and starts attacking its own healthiest, most vital cells.
Oh, wow.
That is what a fixed mindset leader does. Their ego is the disease. When a brilliant, talented employee comes up with a better idea, the leader's ego perceives that healthy cell as a threat and attacks it. They undermine the employee, they deny them promotions, or they just fire them. The company literally destroys its own best assets to protect the CEO's fragile self-image until the whole organism collapses.
That is a terrifying and entirely accurate mechanism. The takeaway for anyone building a team or running a company is build a growth culture. Hire for hunger, hire for resilience, and hire for character.
Yes.
And crucially, you have to restructure your reward systems. If you only give bonuses for the flawless home runs and you punish the strikeouts that come from taking innovative risks, you will breed a culture of safe, stagnant, terrified employees. You have to reward the process of learning.
We've spent a lot of time on achievement arena school, sports, the boardroom, but mindsets don't clock out at 5 p.m.
No, they don't.
They follow us home. They dictate our personal lives, our deepest connections, and how we handle intimacy. Let's transition to love and relationships.
If you think about the underlying mechanics, it makes perfect sense that a core belief about human capacity would dictate how we love. The source material targets what Dweck calls the myth of the perfect partner.
Oh, the soulmate myth.
Yes. This is the classic Hollywood romanticized fixed mindset belief that there is a single predestined soulmate out there for you. And the toxic component of this myth is the belief that this soulmate will complete you, anticipate all your needs, and the relationship will function in a state of perpetual harmony without any effort.
It's the rom-com fantasy. If it's true love, it should just be easy. There shouldn't be deep friction. There shouldn't be fundamentally opposing viewpoints. And the danger of this fairy tale is what happens when the inevitable friction of blending two human lives actually occurs.
Exactly. When a couple operating from a fixed mindset encounters their first major structural conflict, say a fundamental disagreement about finances or, a severe clash in communication styles during a stressful time, they don't view it as a puzzle to be solved collaboratively.
What do they do?
Well, because they believe traits are fixed, they immediately conclude that the relationship itself is inherently flawed.
We're just not meant to be.
Right. The internal monologue is, if we have to work this hard, if we are arguing this much, then you must not be my soulmate. We are incompatible.
Right.
Instead of growing through the friction, they assume the initial match was an error, and they bail.
The source breaks down the stark differences in how these mindsets handle conflict resolution. The fixed mindset partner operates on the assumption that the other person cannot change. This is just who you are. You are always going to be irresponsible. And because they believe traits are permanent, they keep a running historical score of grievances. Every argument is transactional. They blame the partner entirely when things go wrong, and they use the relationship as a vehicle to feel superior.
Contrast that with the mechanics of a growth mindset relationship. Growth mindset individuals do not believe in the fantasy of the finished product. They do not believe great relationships are simply found on a dating app. They believe great relationships are built over years of effort.
Built, not found. That's huge.
They believe that both partners are capable of profound evolution. When severe conflict arises, they don't keep score. They take shared responsibility. They address the friction with curiosity.
Curiosity is such a good word for it.
Right. They ask, why did we both react so defensively? What is the underlying trigger here, and how do we communicate better next time? They view the relationship as a safe, shared laboratory for mutual growth.
I really want to speak directly to you, the listener, right now. If you find yourself constantly running for the exit, the second a romantic relationship requires a difficult, uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, pay attention to that.
If you completely bail the moment your partner reveals a deep flaw or a messy emotional habit, you need to ask yourself a hard question. Are you stuck looking for a flawless, finished product rather than a human partner to grow with?
It's a consumer mindset.
Yes. Are you treating people like consumer electronics that should just work perfectly right out of the box? And if they glitch, you just return them for a new model. Because that is the fixed mindset actively destroying your capacity for deep, enduring connection.
It's a sobering realization. And the source pushes this even further, examining the darker relational dynamics of bullying and victimhood.
Oh, this was an interesting angle.
It really was. Dweck's research indicates that fixed mindset thinking is the primary fuel for bullying. Think about the power dynamic. If you believe your worth is static and cannot be improved through effort, the only way to artificially elevate your own status is to forcefully push someone else down.
Wow.
By dominating and diminishing another person, the bully creates a relative sense of superiority.
And conversely, it fuels victim paralysis. If you have a fixed mindset and you find yourself in an abusive or toxic dynamic, you might internalize the narrative that you are inherently weak, that you are incapable of developing boundaries, and that this mistreatment is just your permanent lot in life.
Exactly.
The growth mindset destroys both sides of that toxic coin. It removes the bully's need to dominate for ego, and it empowers the victim with the profound realization that they can cultivate the strength, the voice, and the resources to alter their circumstances.
It all comes back to that central thesis. Great relationships, whether with a spouse, a friend, or yourself, are built through messy, deliberate effort.
Which brings us to perhaps the most urgent application of all this. Once you realize the immense stakes of this operating system, how it dictates success, leadership, and love, your immediate instinct is preservation for the next generation.
How do we save the kids?
Right. How do we ensure our kids or our students don't fall into the fixed mindset trap? Let's look at Growing Minds, a guide for parents, teachers, and mentors.
The environment a child stumbles through is the crucible that forges their mindset. And the source makes a very pointed, somewhat uncomfortable observation. Adults transmit their own mindsets to children constantly, entirely through subtext, often without realizing it.
Yeah, it's not what we say, it's what we do.
It is rarely about the formal lectures you give them. It is about how they watch you react to the world.
The source states, a parent who values results above learning raises a child terrified of failure. Let's picture the car ride home after a kid's soccer game.
Oh, the classic car ride.
Right. If they lost and the parent is completely silent, visibly annoyed, or only talks about the missed goal, the child learns that their value is entirely contingent on the win.
Exactly.
If the kid brings home a test and you only look at the letter grade at the top and you never ask, what was the most confusing question on this test? What did you figure out today that you didn't know yesterday? You are telling them that the final metric is the only thing that justifies their existence.
We touched on praise earlier, but the source dives into the crucial distinction here between true versus false praise.
Okay, what's false praise?
False praise is the empty calories of the self-esteem movement. It's telling a child, you're amazing at everything. You're a natural artist. You're the smartest kid in the class.
Which feels good in the moment.
It feels wonderful in the moment, but it creates an incredibly fragile child. They know they aren't amazing at everything. Kids aren't stupid. And they eventually realize that if your praise is tied to their perfection, they have to maintain that perfection to keep your love.
So what is true praise?
True encouragement is grittier. It requires much more from the adult. It's looking at a child who is crying in frustration over their math homework and saying, I can see you are incredibly frustrated right now. That feeling is actually your brain growing new connections. Let's step away for 5 minutes, and then what different strategy can we try?
I love that.
It praises the resilience, the strategy, and the persistence.
The actionable steps for educators and parents are clear. Present difficult challenges not as threats to their intelligence, but as exciting opportunities to stretch. Treat their failures as neutral data points, not shameful events. Actively build that not yet culture in your home or classroom.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, but I have to push back here on behalf of every utterly exhausted parent and overworked teacher listening to this.
I know where you're going with this.
Right, because this sounds great in a Stanford psychology lab, but it is incredibly difficult in the chaotic reality of daily life.
Oh, absolutely.
When it is 8:30 p.m., you've worked all day, you're making dinner, and your kid brings home an A on a spelling test, it is so much easier to just smile and say, great job, buddy, you're so smart.
It's the path of least resistance.
Yes, it requires immense cognitive bandwidth to stop yourself, reroute your cultural programming, and say, I am so proud of how many times you sat at the kitchen table and wrote those words out to practice them. It feels clunky and unnatural at first.
You are entirely correct. It is a massive, heavy lift for the adults. But the most critical point, Dweck makes in this section is that you cannot just memorize the correct vocabulary. You have to fundamentally model the growth mindset yourself.
Model it.
Children are flawless hypocrisy detectors. They're constantly monitoring how you handle your own stress and failure.
And let's explore that, because that is where the real transmission happens, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Imagine you were cooking dinner and you completely burn it.
Okay.
The kitchen is full of smoke, the alarm is going off. If you have a complete meltdown, if you throw the pan into the sink, curse, and yell, "I am a terrible cook, I ruin everything I touch," your child is absorbing that entire performance.
They are watching you closely.
They are learning that mistakes are shameful, catastrophic indictments of character. You can tell them to have a growth mindset all day long, but if they watch you operate in a fixed mindset when the pressure's on, that is the lesson that will permanently encode in their brain.
That is deeply convicting.
To truly foster this in kids, the adult must practice narrating their own struggle out loud. You burn dinner, you take a breath, and you say out loud to your kid, "Wow, I really messed that up. I left the heat on too high. I am not good at making this recipe yet, but I learned what not to do next time. Let's order pizza."
That's amazing.
You have to let your kids see you struggle, let them see you analyze the failure without shame, and let them see you persist.
So if we have to model it for others, that means we have to do the hard work of fixing our own internal operating systems first.
You do.
Which brings us to the climax of this deep dive. We have diagnosed the problem across achievement, sports, business, love, and parenting. Now, how do you, the listener, actually rewire your own brain? Section 8, the workshop.
We begin with the most scientifically encouraging message of the entire book. Can you really change a lifetime of fixed thinking?
Yes.
The neuroscience of neuroplasticity confirms it. The human brain is not a static organ. It literally changes its physical structure, forging new neural pathways and pruning old ones in response to learning and experience throughout your entire lifespan.
You're not stuck.
You are never too old, you are never too set in your ways, and you are never too far gone to install a growth mindset.
The source outlines a very specific, practical, 4-step process to execute this change. Let's really break down the mechanics of these steps. Step 1. Learn to hear your fixed mindset voice.
This is the hardest step because it requires you to become an objective observer of your own thoughts. You have to start paying attention to the automatic internal monologue that fires up when you face friction.
Like when things go wrong.
Right. When you are handed a complex new project at work, does a voice immediately whisper, "I can't do this, I'm going to look stupid, everyone will finally realize I'm a fraud"?
Imposter syndrome.
Exactly. When your partner criticizes how you handled a situation, does the voice scream, "They think I'm a terrible person"? You have to catch that voice and explicitly label it. Recognize that it is not the objective truth of the universe. It is just your old fixed mindset programming running a defense script.
Okay. Step 2. Recognize that you have a choice. This is about creating a cognitive gap between the stimulus and your response. Just because your brain generates that fearful voice doesn't mean you have to obey it or believe it.
Right.
You have the executive power to choose how you interpret challenges, setbacks, and criticism.
Step 3 is where you actively intervene. You have to talk back to it with a growth mindset voice.
So what does this actually look like in real time? Let's role play this to show the mechanics.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's say I'm at work. I'm 50 years old, and my company has just mandated that my entire department switch over to a wildly complex new software system that I know absolutely nothing about.
Okay, let's run the diagnostic. Step 1. You sit down at the computer. What is your fixed mindset voice saying?
It's saying, I am a dinosaur. I'm inherently terrible with new technology. My brain doesn't work this way. I'm going to break the system, I'm going to fall behind my quotas, and all the 20-something hires are going to laugh at how incompetent I am. I should just quit now.
Step 2. Stop. You recognize the script. You acknowledge that you are choosing to view your technological adaptability as a permanent static trait tied to your age. You realize you have a choice to reframe it. So, step 3. Talk back. What is the precise growth mindset response?
I would literally say to myself, I do not know how to use this software yet. It is going to be incredibly frustrating for the next 3 weeks. I am going to click the wrong buttons and make mistakes.
Yeah.
But every single mistake will teach me a function I didn't know yesterday. My brain is capable of learning this. Who on my team is good at this that I can ask for a 15-minute tutorial?
That is a perfect cognitive reframe. You neutralize the identity thread, deployed the power of yet, and charted a strategy. It doesn't end there. Step 4, take the growth mindset action.
Right. You can't just do the cognitive therapy in your head. You have to physically execute. The action is sitting down, opening the daunting software and deliberately clicking the buttons. You have to step into the fire of the challenge. The action validates the new belief.
And the most vital thing to understand is that mindset change is not a light switch. You don't just listen to this deep dive, nod along, and wake up tomorrow permanently cured of fixed thinking.
I wish.
It is a grueling, daily, lifelong practice. Every single day, every single minor frustration is a new opportunity to choose the growth response. You will absolutely fall back into the fixed mindset. The goal isn't immediate perfection. The goal is to catch the relapse faster and reframe it quicker each time.
I want to challenge you, the listener, right now. Actively hunt for your own fixed mindset voice later today. It will surface over something completely trivial. You might drop your keys while trying to unlock the front door with a handful of groceries, and you'll mutter under your breath, "I'm such a clumsy idiot."
We all do that.
Catch it in real time. Stop yourself right there on the porch. Say out loud, "I'm not an idiot. I just tried to carry too many things at once without a good grip. I need a better strategy next time." It sounds incredibly silly, but those tiny microcorrections are the exact mechanism by which you physically rewire your neural pathways.
It is the compounding interest of psychological change.
So, as we bring this extensive exploration to a close, let's synthesize the bedrock principles we've extracted from Dr. Dweck's research. We've covered massive ground, but three core truths stand out above the rest.
What's number one?
First, effort is the great multiplier. Baseline talent without sustained effort is ultimately wasted potential, but immense effort can force even average baselines to achieve incredible heights.
Second, failure is simply neutral feedback. It is data. How you choose to process and utilize that data after a failure defines your ultimate trajectory far more than the initial failure ever could.
And third, the profound transformative power of the word yet. I can't do this slams the heavy door shut on your future. I can't do this yet. Leaves the door wide open for evolution.
There is a summarizing thought from the source material, from Dr. Dweck herself, that captures the ultimate essence of this entire paradigm shift.
Let's hear it.
She states it perfectly.
Yeah.
No matter what your ability is, effort is what ignites that ability and turns it into accomplishment.
It is a powerful, demanding reminder that the pen is in your hand. You are writing the code for your own operating system. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. A real-world dilemma for you to mull over that builds on everything we've dissected today.
Okay, lay it on us.
We have talked extensively about how to reprogram your own mindset, how to foster it in your children, and how to build it in your teams. But here is the structural trap. How do you gracefully survive in a relationship or a corporate workplace when you have done the grueling work to cultivate a growth mindset, but you are structurally trapped underneath a partner or a boss who is fiercely, aggressively committed to a fixed one?
That's a tough one.
Can your newly minted growth mindset survive and flourish inside a toxic fixed ecosystem where your growth is viewed as a threat? Or do you eventually, inevitably, have to abandon that environment in order to keep growing?
That is the ultimate friction point. It tests the limits of an individual's internal mindset against the crushing gravity of their environment.
Chew on that today. Analyze the ecosystems you are currently operating in. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Thank you for being willing to unpack these heavy, challenging concepts with us. We encourage you to embrace the friction of the struggle, look for the raw data in your next failure, and above all, keep growing. We'll see you next time.